The PlayStation VR2 is a follow-up to Sony's virtual reality headset that incorporates new features in an attempt to make it the most comfortable, easy-to-access virtual experience for consumers. It has two controllers, a revamped headset offering more comfort and venting for airflow, and a variety of software content. The Washington Post's video game team, Launcher, was invited by Sony to an event in San Mateo, where we were able to experience 4 demo segments: Resident Evil Village PSVR2, Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge Enhanced Edition, The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners Chapter 2 Retribution, and Horizon Call of the Mountain. These demos would, hopefully, show if the PSVR2 can be the product that finally pushes virtual reality from gimmick to legitimate gameplay experience. The script for today's video draws heavily from this Launcher article by Mikhail Klimentov. Give it a read if you're interested for a more in-depth look at what we'll be going over in this vid. Link will be in the description below. The headset is sleek and lightweight, with comfortable padding around the face that easily accommodates glasses. It has a 4K HDR resolution with a 110-degree field of view. Per Sony, the PSVR2's OLED has a display resolution of 2000 by 2040 pixels per eye and smooth frame rates of 90 to 120 Hz. The headset also includes cameras on the inside for eye tracking, which developers said they use to optimize renders in-game based on where the player is looking. These cameras also make it so that a secondary camera focused on the player isn't required for setup. Speaking of setup, setting up the experience is more streamlined than the previous PSVR iteration. In the settings menu, Mikhail was prompted to scan his surroundings so that the headset knew of obstacles or furniture around him. Once the play space was scanned, he could edit it manually, expanding it or carving it down with the controllers. The headset would also warn him when he was running into the limits of the player space, which flashes red when your controller moves out of bounds. There's also a handy button on the bottom of the headset, which allows players to turn on cameras that can show them where they are in the room. The controllers feature adaptive triggers and haptic feedback, and another feature called finger tracking. Without pressing any button, the Sony controllers can detect the presence of fingers touching certain parts of the controller. Though largely cosmetic, as far as we can tell from the demos made available, the feature allowed Mikhail to make funny shapes with his in-game avatar's hands. Let's get to the demos. The first demo shown to us was Resident Evil Village PSVR2. It was essentially a one-to-one recreation of a moment from the original game's experience, just from a wildly different perspective. Players were given 2 weapons to fend off enemies, a knife, which players could also throw, and a gun, which required using your hands to reload using hand movements that emulate ones you'd use in real life to load a gun. Mikhail writes that he felt the degree to which cinematics can be impacted by VR's altered perspective. It's one thing to be taunted and haunted by the giant Lady Dimitrescu and her daughters on a TV screen. It's another entirely to feel yourself be lifted in the air by her from a first-person viewpoint.
Let's see how special you are.
In the Tales from the Galaxy's Edge demo, we played as a droid repair technician and spent the majority of our time in a cantina, where you could throw darts, eat space tacos, pester a bartender, and play a synthesizer drum instrument. We didn't run into familiar faces of the Star Wars franchise, but we did run into this little guy. You can actually bend down to his height level to get a different perspective of him in the cantina. While you're eventually taken out of the cantina and into a fighting segment, Mikhail notes that the minigames and overall experiences the cantina section offered didn't feel auxiliary to the enjoyment of the demo. He feels they were actually a big part of it.
Now, you, good luck!
The Walking Dead demo had us not only interacting with the series' infamous dialogue system, but also mowing down zombies in a frantic attempt for survival. Features that would normally have been relegated to simple button presses in a standard release were full-blown mechanics in virtual reality. Mikhail notes that reloading, in particular, required an adjustment period. Picking up and using a chainsaw, for example, required a different set of hand motions than doing the same for a sawed-off shotgun. These tweaks to the traditional video game formula dramatically increased the tension as he fumbled through hand movements with zombies fast approaching. These mechanics actually enhanced the experience in a way no other control scheme could, in a way very befitting of a good zombie survival game. Perhaps the culmination of our demo experiences, Horizon Call of the Mountain, takes players through a roller coaster-like experience, where your mobility is limited as you move on rails through Horizon's world, just barely scraping under a tall nut and watching as other dangerous beasts skitter all around you. The game also casts players as a new character, a disgraced former soldier who is an expert climber, and the portion of the demo that focused on climbing in particular was a revelation. Climbing felt intuitive and almost like an exercise, and vistas that became visible on the climbs up made a case for VR in and of itself. So now for the verdict. Mikhail writes that, after his first few sessions, it was a tad disorienting taking off the device and getting reacquainted with normal depth perception. But this didn't disrupt his enjoyment of the demos. Beyond that feeling, and some minor adjustment of the straps and lenses here and there, once the headset was on, he largely forgot he was wearing one. In fact, he writes, quote, "I don't remember what the PSVR2 felt like to wear," which is perhaps the best compliment you can pay a VR headset. Crucially though, Horizon, and many of the other sections in the VR demos, were funny. In Horizon, Mikhail played around with drums, maracas, and finger paint for longer than he was in combat. At multiple points, we would search the demo's areas just to see if we could find loose objects to pick up and throw. In the past, these qualities, according to some players, have been perceived as superficial, something showcasing the capabilities of VR while not actually offering enhancements to typical video game experiences. This time around, these qualities expand on what you can do in VR games in ways that heighten the medium overall. Throughout the demos, we saw little things with clever design choices, like the Walking Dead demo's heightened tension as you fumble to reload a gun, or actually seeing the sheer size of Lady Dimitrescu from your character's much smaller viewpoint. These small details, and the ability to find fun and beauty in unexpected features and places, can only be a boon to VR in the long run.